Hi there, good afternoon. Out of Johannesburg, South Africa. For us here in Johannesburg, it's always sunny, even in winter. That's part of the privileges of basically being out here. So, Wilhelm Swart from BluESP. I lead BluESP. I'm an electrical engineer with about 25 years worth of experience in mining and in industry. We at BluESP is all still semi-lockdown, working remotely, staying focused, carrying on with good work with our clients. Great to have you here for our Smart Focus webinar series. So we kicked this 9-week educational webinar series off, in the midst of this new operating conditions. So we're in a place right now is what we call extreme VUCA. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change happening. So there's a reason to basically look at some of these new ways of doing things. So some of the things that is the norm right now, there's a big push for working more remote, less eyes and ears on site, and also allowing the sites to have secure access to the data at all times, more agile. Basically, some of our clients, our industrial clients and also refinery clients are pushing their production up and down. Like first, when the crisis hit, there was a huge reduction, and then now there's this requirement for spiking production again, changing the mixes. So the agility is very important. Focused on energy saving and sustainability is always there, so it's always important. More focus on data analytics and more cloud focus, bringing more embedded AI in to bring more value to that data is also the norm, what we're seeing. And then there's a requirement for more collaboration at all times. So vendors and OEMs and people like us and the clients all working hand in hand to bring value to each other and to bring asset optimization through. A concept of remote virtual operating centers, where remote asset monitoring, or for example of mills or crushers or pumps or fans or trucks, or all these things are becoming more and more requirement. Also, the clients, the metallurgists and the process engineers are looking for remote process monitoring of their processes as well. So, those are the type of things that we see in this new operating condition environment that we're operating in right now. So we thought it's very important to prepare ourselves to cross-skill and upskill, learn some new, learn about the new agile technologies, all focused on how do we run our industrial assets safer, greener, faster and longer. So we've put together, if you see here, we've put a combination of really three core streams. So the first one focused on advanced process control. We had one at the start, we're doing another one next week. And what we see with under these new operating conditions, there is sharp changes in the rate throughput that the clients demand, and also the mixes in the processes. So those are the things that advanced process control focus a lot on. Also focused on reducing energy usage, by 10%. So in a boiler plant, or reducing the CO2 footprint, the carbon footprint of a specific plant area. Reducing the chemical dosing up to 20% in a mineral processing environment, or increasing the yield between 3 to 4%. So Kevin spoke about that. Next week, Marinda and Adrian will talk further about how do we use the latest, greatest AspenTech software to bring that value to it. Last week, we had a session on asset performance management. So key focus again, look at the asset and predict when an asset will fail, say 3 to 6 weeks ahead of time. And what do you do with that prediction? This team has been involved with some of the largest mining projects in South Africa and Botswana right now, and they're still scaling some other global projects out as well and supporting global teams. And also, they're also involved with some multivariate analysis projects right now to try and see what is causing quality issues in process, in maybe the production of steel plates, or in a specific, why am my quality varying quite a lot at the time. And then, today what we're focusing on is we're doing the first MES and manufacturing and operational management system today. So really we're focusing on how to run the operations more leaner and more efficient. So when I put MES in, the first thing that we do is we talk about we have to deploy delay accounting, downtime, OEE, see how the assets are running. This team is working on projects in Middle East in Asia at the moment, various projects in Africa at the moment as well. They have managed services agreements with some of the largest mining clients in Africa as we speak. So if we go to the next slide and just have a bit of a look at the whole offer set. I'm just going to switch off my camera here and then. So what we try to show here is basically the whole operational intelligence stack of 4Sight. So really what we believe is that if you take data and intelligent technology and you bring them together, you basically get an intelligent enterprise 5.0. So yeah, not only is the data and the technology quite important, but you also have to work with the people that will be using it. You have to look very, very seriously at new business models, that we apply using these technologies and how the people have to adopt it. And there's a big drive to cloud as well, the key theme of today as well. In the middle of this slide, what we also show is some of these great technologies that AspenTech provides us, but also companies like Simio and maybe some of the vendors that the automation players work with as well. So technologies that like industrial Internet of Things, IoT, or bringing more AI and machine learning and deep learning into the software that we've been using for a long time. Advanced analytics is used quite a lot right now in what we do. Multivariate analysis, I just said to you right now, learn some patterns from complex data sets to predict outcomes with that. Simulation and also, of constraint simulation and also simulation related to planning and scheduling is very, very important. Bring in virtual reality and augmented reality to enable the workforce to run the plant better. At all times, make sure that what is in the ERP system, in the SAP or the Sage or whatever ERP system the client has, that is basically linked or ties up very well with what is happening in operations. So Henny will speak about that. You can see that it's constantly in an MES in the cloud is constantly also linking into the SAP environment. So then if we look at, the companies that we bring this technology to market with, if I start from the bottom, firstly, there is a group that focus on asset automation, and the company is Age Technology. And so the key focus is they focus on installing instrumentation, multi-vendor again, to measure what's happening. They connect to it via industrial networks and link it into PLCs and SCADA, so Rockwell, Siemens, Schneider, whatever PLC you have, and they do control systems on that. Also make those plants safe, and then help to visualize that control and all that information in SCADA systems like Cytec SCADA or WinCC or Wonderware, or whatever the client might have. So they're really a multi-vendor system integrator, and we work very, very closely with them and part of the 4Sight group. In the middle of the stack, you basically get BluESP. We focus on asset optimization. So really, BluESP is an AspenTech reseller and an ISP integration solution provider, and we in the focus of taking that data from the automation layer or from the control layer and turning it into information that you can work with, and then bringing wisdom and intelligence and insights, knowledge to that data. More about us a little bit later. And then also working very closely with us is a group that focus very much on asset simulation and also planning and scheduling simulation. It's a bunch of 25 engineers, simulation engineering technology, or SET as they're known, that focus on constraint simulation in mining and industry processes, and also constraint simulation associated with the optimization of the planning and the scheduling, and also the control of that. So we work very, very closely with them, with these two subsidiaries of 4Sight, one focused on automation, one focused on optimization, and one focused on digital twins or simulation associated with it. Next slide, please. And then just a little bit more about BluESP. So, this webinar today is hosted by BluESP, and we see ourselves as a very agile, dynamic company with, a good group of multidisciplinary engineers. So in our team, we have chemical engineers, we've got mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and some data scientists, and they work together to bring these value, because that's what's exciting about BluESP, because to really unleash the value, you have to have these multidisciplinary skills and bring it to the client. And also, we work very, very close to AspenTech, so we see them as the role models to really teach us and bring us the technology that brings brings this asset optimization value to our clients. So they bring this new generation operational technologies in where, they bring in, for example, advanced artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning into the office sets, the MES office sets and the advanced process control and also the asset performance management. So we have one of their representatives today with us as well, and he'll talk specifically about how we bring some of these advanced technologies into the MES set. And you'll hear more about that. And then also the concepts of like bringing some of these software together in hybrid models, and self-learning and whatever. So if you just a quick one, the summation of it. So AspenTech have 3 key sets. There's some design technologies at the bottom, which focus on, if I had to build a new plant right now, how will I build the best possible, most sustainable, greenest plant? So there's tools there on how do I simulate, how do I design, how do I manage the cost, and how do I build an effective site? And then the next one basically is there is also asset performance management software. So asset performance management and the 3 key sets there is predictive and preventive asset failure software. So the Intel technology that we had last week, we had a presentation on that. Very, very soon we'll focus also on the ProMV set that focus on predicting and preventing process quality failures. So ProMV, and there's also a set of software that works on simulation, maintenance risk environments, and the Fidelis type technology. And then the last set right at the top is software sets that we use to operate plants better with. And the key area there is like obviously the MES that we are focusing on right now, that Henny will present to us today, and that's all to do with how do I aggregate the data, how do I bring value to the data, how do I deploy this metal accounting mass balancing to it, and there's also other sets of technology in that stack like advanced process control software, and how do you run a plant at the optimum level. But with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Daryl Opie, the General Manager of BluESP Solution Sales, to introduce the speakers of today and also just tell us a little bit more about himself. Over to you, Daryl.
Thank you, Wilhelm, and welcome everybody. As Wilhelm said, my name is Daryl Opie, and I will be your host this afternoon for the session titled MES in the Cloud, the Good, the Bad, and the Silver Lining. A little about me. I graduated from WITS with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I started applying my trade in the manufacturing and industrial industry doing electrical instrumentation and automation projects. And about 10 years ago, I somehow migrated into solution selling in the mining industry. I have since worked with some of the biggest mining companies in the world and have helped them translate business needs into solutions that create value. But most of these solutions require accurate, reliable data from various sources. So today's topic is crucial in laying the foundation of understanding your plant in order to make better and more informed decisions. Today we have an esteemed guest from AspenTech and 2 very experienced BluESP engineers with a wealth of knowledge built over decades. In fact, some say Henny gave a similar presentation during the 3rd Industrial Revolution. So with that, allow me to introduce your presenters. Henny Jacobs is our Professional Services Director, as well as heading up our MES division with a degree in electrical engineering. He has been working on AspenTech products for the best part of 25 years. Then we have Glenn Herman. He's our resident Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Brilliant IT and MES engineer during the week and crazy motocross rider during the weekend. So if you want MES advice, phone him Monday to Friday. If you want to discuss dirt bikes, phone him on the weekend. And lastly, we have Paul Talley. He's a director and product manager at AspenTech based in Houston, Texas, and he has a degree in chemical engineering. Paul has been in the industry for a while and been with AspenTech for over 15 years. It is an honor to have him join us today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone will be on mute, so if you have any questions, please write them in the comment section and we will attempt to answer them at the end of today's session. Any questions we don't get to will be handled offline, so please take this opportunity to tap into the vast bucket of experience and ask away. Also, just a reminder, this session is being recorded. The presenters will partly be presenting and partly showing a live demo that is sitting in Microsoft Azure. And with that, I'll pass you over to the capable hands. Enjoy.
Thank you, Daryl. So the agenda, what I wanted to discuss, and we as a team just want to look at, is basically drill down a little bit in the AspenTech Foundation, or the MES Foundation, based on the AspenTech MES suite. And we also doing in this section, we will be doing some demoing and some presentation, as Daryl has said. The MES in the cloud, we will give over to Paul, where Paul is going to give us more detail on the cloud and also some of the future stuff that AspenTech has been looking at. And then we will go in a Q&A session. So starting with the MES Foundation is basically where we want to start and see, and we want to discuss the MES Foundation. So what do we want to achieve? Firstly, we want to have a place in brackets where you want to store the data, and you want to have it in a centralized process where you have one version of the truth. This centralized database is very often per plant, or also could be as a more enterprise central view of your whole business. We make use of the IP21, a very strong real-time database that collects a large volume of data, stores it, and it gives us a lot of capability and enhance analytical processing power. It also serves as an application server. Info+21 is a flexible and scalable database with high-speed functions, embedded event-driven application engine that enable any business to do efficient data management. There's various functionalities like limit checking, enhanced calculations, alarming, and also some scheduled activation. The MES Foundation is basically enabling us to host different solutions like log sheets, downtime, production data, and some of the material management, final product management. We will have a look at some of the applications today, but as Wilhelm has said, there's also some additional webinars scheduled in the next few weeks that will address some of these solutions in a little bit more detail. For today, I just want to basically look at the foundation. As part of the critical foundation where you have put the MES down, we want to collect data from various sources like the plant control systems, your typical PLC and DCS systems. We want to tap into some telemetry, and we want to also tap into some of the quality data, your typical LIM systems, where we gain quality data of how the process is doing. We also tap into the weighbridge data to be able to enable the receiving and sending of our products, and then also send the data into your typical ERP. For the mining customers, mainly SAP, but we see some customers changing to different ERPs, like Sage and some of the other SysPro and some of the other ERP systems. Simple and complex calculations, enabling us to be able to do root cause analysis, and makes it easier and faster to make business decisions. How do we view our MES data? Well, there's all different kinds of ways to tap into the data. It's an open database where you've got web services and ODBC and different means and OPC to get to some of the data. But what I want to focus on today is just have a look at a product or the MES viewing tool, which is called A1PE, which stands for Aspen Process Explorer. And as the name indicates, I want to explore what's happening on my process. A1PE is a web tool focuses on all the different AspenTech products like MES, and also some of the other modules like APC and Asset Performance Management, APM. I know Paul and his team is working very hard to expand on what basically is happening in A1PE. I want to show some examples, but before I get to that, I just want to highlight some of the important features of A1PE. It's based on the new technologies like HTML5, which enables us not to require any client-side installations and make it much easier for our IT departments to roll out the visualization of this MES. Consists of interactive dashboards with roll-down capabilities, and the whole aim of A1PE is to be able to be device independent so that we can use it on tablets and phones as well. If we just look at some of the examples that I'm showing here, and as I said, AspenTech is driving towards having a single look and feel for all the applications, and here are some of like the Aspen Advanced Trending, what we use to be able to quickly view our data in real time over different time spans. We want to drill into detail, zoom into data, and also be able to use collaborative comments and markers or annotations, as they are called, to be able to drill into certain sections of our data. We also look at graphs and dashboards. This is not aiming and trying to be a SCADA solution. It is more of a high-level overview of what is happening to our process data and our business. Alarm and events, enabling us to be able to monitor different alarm states of our process data, and we can monitor events in real times. And we will basically look into this event-driven solution database in one of the following seminars or webinars. But essentially, we want to use this data to be able to get to an ideal batch that is often referred to a golden batch. OEE, which is our overall equipment effectiveness, standard features in IP21, and also as part of A1PE, enabling us to drill down into more detail. Very, very powerful. A1PE is also providing us with rich SPC or statistical analysis tools to be able to drill into the process data and basically look into root cause analysis and how we can see variation in our business. If we look at some of the pattern search, enabling us to be able to view different patterns in history and historical data that the eye cannot see. It's patterns that varies to a degree. It is not always 100% exactly the same, but we will see. I will show you some of the examples later where we've got a fit percentage on how similar these patterns are. Master data templates as well, to be able to give context to the whole business and context to our data model, and to be able to drill down into various assets using the same model. KPI hierarchies for the whole business, enabling us to drill down into certain sections of the data and providing us with more insights. And then, like I said, the batch analysis and batch overlays and process events is data views that we will have a look at the later stage, but it's basically how our process is performing and what we can drill into and look at the data. Now, also A1PE, very powerful, getting data from various different data sources. If we look at the menu structure, we want to be able to find this data quickly. A1PE is making use of a context-sensitive navigation menu, where it enables us to be able to drill down into public and if you, for your own users, private files to be able to view your certain data. Here you can see some of the examples that we are showing, where if you drill into a demo materials a folder, the context is, or the menu is basically replaced with the context associated with demo materials. And then you can drill down deeper into finding your detail. As the icons indicate, you can view at graphics, view at tag lists, and just then helps you, enables you to be able to quickly identify the data that you want to look at. Just looking at some of the examples in a little bit more detail. If you look at the dashboard views, like I said, giving us access to relevant business data. We want to look at some of the real-time tag data, and then as raw data, but also do some data aggregation on it and do some insights and maybe look at averages and different standard deviations and standard views of the data. Process values is also configured to be able to go into certain low and high states, or a valid state, which is the OK state. And this alarms, or this A1PE is enabling us to be able to drill into the areas where we've got a violation of these alarms. AspenTech is also making use of a very powerful calculation engine called AspenCalc that forms an integral part of this MES Foundation. We can do also ad hoc calculations on the trend, which is getting executed for the time span that you are viewing, and it can be configured by the users. As I've mentioned, the menu is driven from the public and the private files, which is enabling us our menu. And I will show you a little bit later how we can have a look at different view of that. Various templates available to be able to create dashboards and tab groups to view important data in dashboard look and feel like. With this, I just want to at this stage just jump into the demo that I've prepared. This demo is basically a Azure server, Microsoft Azure server. We've installed IP21, and I want to start here maybe just as an example where we have a look at the dashboard, and this dashboard is basically giving us trends, graphic, and some KPI information and some detail that's relevant to the view that we want to look at. For instance, the trend on the top is basically giving us some insight on a reactor, and here we can have a look at what is happening on the reactor compared with a temperature and a pressure, and basically gives us insight what is happening on a 2-hour default time frame. You will see at the bottom you can change the time frames to look into more detail, and then just some additional graphs and trends that we want to look at. If I show you some of the other examples here, you can see on the left hand side, if I drill down into some of the dashboards, the menu's context is getting replaced, and if I click on overview dashboard, it basically opens a dashboard that I've configured, again with trending and some of the SPC and a graphic that enables us to look at some of this data. At this point, you will see some of this data is there's a public view or a public trend that enables us to look at detail in more in larger time spans. So if I go basically to a 4-hour, and you will have seen that only this trend is changing. The reason for that is you can, for the different sections, enable private timeline, and that's indicated by that indication that you've seen there. So if I go back to 2 hours, we look at 2 hours. I have some drill down capability, so I can drill down deeper into this graphic of mine, and to be able to look at more detailed data. I can drill down on the graphic as well. So if I essentially drill down, I can also look at any of the data tags and get more tag details, which we refer to as the tag details, that enables and gives us additional information, insights. What is my limits? Additional details that I want to maybe have a look at that is relevant to what I want to do. I can look at some of the history. I can export some of this data, and I can see all kinds of data. So also a little bit of a 2-hour window that I can look at some of the trends. If I basically go back, I will just go back to this trend again. Another example that I can show is just a dashboard that I've created with some dial gauges and also an overview of a furnace. Maybe just to emphasize that there's a whole lot of templates available. Here you can see a 3x3 dashboard with a whole lot of mimics that we have just configured. This could now be trends, and it could be KPI information that we want to have a look at. If I look at how do I create a new trend, I will basically able to just go and select one from the templates, and you will see when I create a new template, I've got various options to be able to do a normal trend, do XY trends, do analytical views, look at event data. There's different layouts options, but for this, I'm just going to select a new trend, and I'm going to basically just search for data, focusing on the search of data within my MES Foundation, a strong Google-like search type engine that is enabling me to be able to drill and search for data. So here you can see if I start drilling into some of the tags, there's a Google-like search that is appearing with all my tags, and also some additional information like aliases that is complying to this filter that I've put in. So if I select the tag, I basically just get a default trending of this trends, and I can just look, and I can drill down into a 4-hour window, 2-hour window if I want to look at certain data. Some features, if I just want to look at some of the data at a specific point, I can put markers down that gives me the timestamp and also the value at that specific point in time. I can add another one here, and I can basically just look at some of the data at that point in time. If I want to look at specifically areas where I just want to maybe zoom into, I will just be able to zoom into a section of the plant or of the data, and I can either zoom into the data to get a view or a zoomed view, or I can just go back and then I will have a look at some of the data that I want to show additionally. If I want to look at some of the data aggregation, like I've mentioned in the previous slides, I can basically just copy this tag if I want to do some aggregation on this tag, and I will copy and I will paste the tag, and I've got the means of selecting any of them and basically just change the data or the trend type. By default it shows actuals, but I can make it the aggregate. And in this case, I'm just going to select the time average of the data. You can see there's a whole lot of options available. We don't have time to go through all of that, but I will just drill into show me the data of or show me data in 10-minute windows, and you will see the red line is basically a change to a 10-minute view of this important data that I want to have a look at. Additionally, I can also add some additional ad hoc calculations. I've mentioned about Aspen Calc. I'm not going to go into Aspen Calc at this stage, but Aspen One Process Explorer enables us to be able to add ad hoc calculations, and I can basically just go in here and add my tags that I want to look at. And I just want to make sure that this one is popping up. Okay, and I will be able to, if maybe at this point, if I want to look at more tags, I can basically just open a folder where I want to look at certain of the tags, and I can select any of these tags and add it to the window. And if I close that, I can basically just drill into this. Okay, this one doesn't have calculation data, so I've selected the wrong one, but let me change this one, the red line, and change it back to actuals, and I can basically go back and change this calculation, and I can make it the ad hoc calculation where I can just put a formula in, and if I approve it, I will basically have seen that I've now showing this data, and I've got some ad hoc calculation. This is getting stored as part of the trend or the plot itself, so that if you want to open this again, and you will be able to do those calculations. This is using the data or pulling in the data from the historian or from the database, and we will do this calculation. Saving my trends, I can drill down in creating my menu structures. Here you can see if I build this menu structures and I basically just add it to, let's say, the demo trends, and I call it A11A trends. I'm making it available. I'm saving it at this stage as a public plot that's accessible to everybody that can view the public data. So if I go to demo trends, you will be able to see there's my trend, and this is now available to be able to select. Let me go back to the presentation. What I have shown you guys at the moment is basically just drilling down into some of the graphical views. Real-time trending data aggregations. We had a look at some of the ad hoc calculations, and the tab groups I haven't shown, but effectively what it means is I can just look at I can display the plots in a group, a tab group. Very important also for us is the SPC functionality to enable us to be able to monitor the process and detect changes in the process quickly. As we know, processes have variability, and it leads to behavior that prevents the ability to maximize our operating margins. And this SPC control charts can help us to analyze and understand these variability in the processes. There are various standard trends, like the frequency, standard deviation, range, X bar, but I will show some of that as an example. Using KPIs or key performance indicators to evaluate the process is also very important. I mean, as we know that a good KPI, we want it to be relevant. We want to be able to control this KPI. It needs to be quantifiable. We want to be able to measure it, and it needs to be visible for us to make sense and how we want to look at our process. KPI hierarchies, convenient way of drilling down into areas, into the business, and to look at certain alarms and monitoring of some of the data. Patterns also very important. We can have a look at the pattern. So the first question obviously is, what is a pattern? A pattern is a sequence of regular of data found in comparable objects or events. Although the patterns are not always 100% exactly the same, there is variation in typical the shape, the value, and also the time of these patterns. We talk about the fit percentage and on how we want to measure these patterns with each other, and A1PE is enabling us with that capability to be able to look at it. There's two pattern search event capabilities in A1PE. The one is where we want to look at a single process, and that's called pattern discovery. And if you want to look at multiple tags, one or more multiple tags, it's called pattern recognitions, and then you can also compare certain tags as well. Comments and conversations is helping us so that the operator can comment on certain areas of the process on the plot, and it can be viewed on different means. It's saved within the database, and it's also saved as part of this plot file, so that we enables us to be able to do future analysis. I will show you later that these comments can also form part of a conversation on what is happening on the plants. And then A1PE is enabling us to build various solutions, custom solutions that's relevant to the business, and it's got a lot of strong features to be able to do that. I just want to quickly go back to my demo and effectively just want to show you some of the patterns. So if I start a new trend, I just want to put a trend down, and I will want to look at some of the trends, and I will just, as an example, basically use this trend where we want to have a look. No, I think I want to rather go to this temperature, reactor temperature tag. and here you can see a temperature tag. So if I wanted to look at some of the, I'm going to show you the pattern discovery. If I go into the pattern discovery, I've got an option to be able to look at pattern recognition and pattern discovery. This pattern discovery, I'm just going to show this as an example. Here I can decide if there was more than one tag on my plot, which tag I want to have a look at. And I want to search, just to make it easier, I'm going to look at the last 2 days for patterns in the data, and I want to look at certain pattern durations of 30 minutes, and I can add some additional parameters here. I can say I want to look at 1 minute of the samples, maybe I will look at 5 minutes, and I want to compare the similarity of this data. So if I click find, you will see it comes up with a view where it basically has found, in this example, 9 matches as the case 1, and 27 matches, and then it gives me the options to have a look at the different patterns. I can do a match overlay of these patterns, and here you can see for pattern 1, it's basically found 9 occasions where the data is similar. If I go to the next pattern, it gives you more detail and what that it found in these patterns, and you can have a look at some of this detail. So here it essentially allows us to go to the different patterns to be able to get to look at this data. You can plot the results. I'm not going to go into all of that detail right now. If we look at some of the comments functionality that we can have a look at, I can basically make a comment at any area of the plant or of the plot, and I can highlight the area that I want to make a comment on. And if I do this, I essentially can add a comment. And if I add a comment, I can just say the okay, if I want to do this, weather is sunny. And if I save this, I make it available, you will see it basically it gives an indication of a comment, and I can open this panel to be able to drill down and look at some of this the comments that has been made. Can do replies to these comments, and I can also search for these comments within data. As a conversation overview, let me just close this. We can also, if I go to the home page, I will be able to look at some of the conversations that enables us to be able to look at this data. Here you can see, if I drill down and I only want to show the last 2 hours worth of comments, here you can see I just made a comment and I basically visible. On the right hand side here, I've got the means to allocate and follow certain areas of the plant, certain people, and also certain tags that we can follow on what is the comments that has been made. I'm not going to go into more detail on that now, but if I go back basically to our trends, I just want to quickly show that if I would create a new trend here, select the trend, and I would basically just look at one of my tags, and I can view this tag. If I want to look at some of the SPC functionality, I can select this process value that I'm looking at, and I can edit it. By the way, if you look at some of the data sources, you have got the option to look at process values from different databases. Here I'm just looking at my own database. I've got the scales of just auto scaling it. But what I want to show you here is that I've shown you some of the aggregate, but I can also have a look at some of the SPC, ad hoc SPC, and there's various SPC control limits that can be set to enable us to make sense out of our data. Here I just want to select, for instance, standard deviation, and if I basically select the standard deviation, the same tag that I have just looking at is converted into a standard deviation view with all the lower and upper limits and the different limits that is basically getting used as part of my standard deviation into this plant. Lastly, as part of this demo, I just quickly want to just show that there's a different view on some of the KPIs. if I just in an example, and I've mentioned earlier to you that if you look at alarms, you can get an indication what is happening on my process. And in this an example, you can see on the left-hand side, the menu is changing its context to indicate that there is a high limit. If I want to know what's happening, I will basically drill down into this KPI view, and here I can get a view of what is happening, and the different colors is giving an indication on in what state these data are. Due to time, I'm not going to go into all of the other details, and I will basically just go back to our presentation. So, so what you've seen so far is the solutions and the comments. The different way of viewing our data is also obviously our MES operational reporting. We will have online reporting in the fashion of views, but we also make use of SQL reporting services to be able to look at some data reports that we can export to Excel, PDF, and some of the Word. And it's also a strong tool to be able to drill down into various functionality. What we've also done on A1PE is to create solutions where we want to drill into our operations view. Here's just an example of electronic log sheet, getting the data from the database and showing it on these, let's say, online view, online reports that enables us to provide parameters and be able to filter this data and look at the different areas of the plant. Totally configurable in the database and with some limit identification. This, again, I want to drill into it a little bit later as one of the other webinars, but maybe just as an example, you will see I will drill into A1PE and open log sheets, and here's a view where I can look at the daily log sheet and looking at the plant chemical. This is a process that I've created. This is a simulation on my database, and there's just some views. But we will go into more detail regarding this at a later webinar. So in summary, basically, the MES forming part of our digital transformation enable us to get data from various data sources, enabling us to be able to build different solutions on it, make the data available into enterprise, and part of our digital transformation is to make it in the cloud available for the enterprise use. Maybe just as an indication here, a lot of SAP interfacing, SAP interfacing that we've done to SAP from the MES. And then the last slide before I give over to Paul is just where we are in part of our strategy to converge OT and IT. Here you can see some views on what we do on the IT side, or OT side rather, and then also some of the IT side where financial data and HR data, where a lot of customers is putting this data in typical data lakes or data vaults to able to combine all of this data. And a key point for us is obviously is the MES, that's crucial to get in place to enable your digital transformation. At this stage, I want to give it over to Paul to give us a view on how AspenTech is doing this. Paul, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm hoping that everybody can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, Paul.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Annie. Before I'm going to be talking about our MES offering in the cloud. And before I do that, I have to make a safe harbor statement, which essentially says that I am going to be showing you some very forward-looking things. Well, not very. We're talking about version 12, which will be coming soon. And so, you know, you need to be aware that much of the material that I will present from this point on is really a forward-looking statement and is actually relative to version 12. Now, I'm going to talk about what we refer to as the MES Collaborative. And this is a new product that we're introducing in version 12. And it is really designed to address a number of pain points with our customers. The first one being the desire to have an enterprise level MES. You know, traditionally we've tried to combine these things into, you know, single servers and what have you. And really what we're looking at here is we need a simple way of aggregating data from multiple sites. We need a simple way to do analytics and performance reporting and so on and so forth. And we're probably going to have this in the cloud. We might have it in a corporate data center, but it's probably going to be in the cloud. And we need a mechanism that makes it easy to copy information or data from sites and put it into this enterprise level MES. There's another problem here. Many large companies will have a number of small sites, and those small sites are, it's very difficult to justify the cost of rolling out an entire MES at those sites. But at the same time, everybody realizes that those small sites can benefit from an MES. So how do we, what's the answer here? Well, if you have something in the cloud, if you have an MES in the cloud, there's actually nothing that prevents you from really partitioning that MES so that small sites can access the MES in the cloud and use it in that way, as opposed to doing a complete rollout at a site. Okay, so those two things actually kind of fit together, right? The next is high availability. Of course, you know, in this day and age, if you aren't able to provide some form of high availability, some sort of failover mechanism, redundancy in your data, it's a bit of a problem. And this works at the on-prem level as well as at the corporate level. And then fourth thing that we wanted to do is to be able to provide non-disruptive, transparent upgrades to our customers. In other words, you don't lose any data, and your end users don't lose access to the data, and your end users don't even realize that an upgrade is going on as it is happening. Our solution to this is using what we call collaborative, or we've developed something that we refer to as the MES Collaborative. And really this is using load balancing technology, where you're dealing with virtual clones of your system. And you can also make the systems very, very large. The load balancing balances out the loading of the individual servers, so you can have lots of data coming in. You can have lots of demands for data simultaneously in the cloud, and everything is very, very, very performant. And just to give you a perspective on how this looks, you know, here we've got three MES. We have three MES servers working in a collaborative, and the term collaborative means that, you know, literally these servers are collaborating with one another. They're sharing the load around so that you can have really, really good performance. And in the case of where you're doing this in the cloud or a data center, you know, there's a load balancer involved. There may be Aspen Enterprise Insights that is using the data. You have A1PE, a farm of A1PE servers, for example, that also have their own load balancer that are using the data. You have on-prem MES that is pushing data up into here. So you can see this is a very high traffic situation, a lot of redundancy built into this, and a lot of capability as a consequence. Likewise, you know, in the on-prem, the configuration is just slightly changed here using the A1PE servers. Here we have putting the SIM-IO back into the equation. Of course, we could have SIM-IO in the cloud as well. Here we've had to do some very special, some technology of our own on handling how the SIM-IO interacts with a collaborative. I'm going to step you through a scenario here that serves to explain the collaborative in all of its different manifestations, if you will. Imagine that you have 4 plants. You have one very, very large plant. You have actually, you're using redundant IP21s as an example here. And then you have 2 medium-sized plants, and then you have a very small plant that actually has stranded data. And in fact, none of these data are being replicated very well up to the corporate level. The first step might be to have a collaborative down for your largest plant, where you have a high availability context. It's completely transparent. It's a very cost-effective solution. Failovers and upgrades are not even evident to the end users. And then you can probably follow this up with let's say collaboratives up in the cloud here, and all of these are communicating using our Aspen Cloud Connect technology from the individual sites, but also our Cloud Connect technology is capable of talking to the OPC UA servers or whatever may exist down at this small plant and bringing those data up here. And this is a case where this is a small site that is actually getting its MES from the cloud. And it's shared in with the enterprise level MES all at the same time. So there's no more stranded data. Your smaller sites are well served. You have aggregated data up at the enterprise level, and you have high availability down at your large plant. Of course, you could have high availability at these. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. I need to do a time check here. We're almost to the top of the hour, and I'm sure that people want to ask questions. Would you prefer to sort of stop at this point and do questions?
Paul,
Paul, quickly go through the connector as well, and then I think we probably can go about 5 minutes over. So
okay, will do. So as you can imagine, it's the communication here. How do we replicate data? How do we move data or copy data from all of these individual sites up into the cloud? Well, that's where Aspen Cloud Connect comes in. Aspen Cloud Connect is new technology. Well, we've had it about 2.5 years now, but it's a technology that we are applying very generously here in terms of getting data between from AspenTech products to AspenTech products, from AspenTech products into the cloud, and from AspenTech products to third party. And really, this is the technology has this virtue of not only being able to stream data, but it can also move history as well, which is a very common sort of effect that you're going to want to initiate when you are, let's say, instantiating collaborative up in the cloud. So the technology where, one of the things that we have to be certain of is that we're moving the time series data. It's protected, it's secured, it's moved efficiently. And our Cloud Connect technology is enabling us to do all of this. A different perspective on this, and you can see where all of our Connect technologies come into play here, as well as, we're still going to continue to do this MIO. But this gives you an indication of all of the different layers which are possible here, and how we're able to use the Connect technology to essentially, for all intents and purposes, replicate data from one source to another source, including being able to move data into a data lake such as S3. as we see here. You might also see that we have remote devices here. Our Edge Connect is very much a part of that. Of course, not all the possible connections are shown here because that would have made a very, very busy diagram. But I did want to illustrate all of the different ways in which data can be moved or replicated around between the different levels, if you will, here. Okay, this is just giving you a screenshot of this technology as it will manifest in version 12 here, where we have a dashboard where we work with the various jobs. Well, we call them jobs. Some people call them routes. And you know, you can get the status and what those jobs are currently doing. You can start, stop, suspend, pause, whatever you want to do with these jobs to manage. And of course, you know, they work in blocks of tags or other data entities. And again, I'll remind you that this not only does streaming, it also does the replication of historical archives between different historians, as an example. And I think that pretty well concludes my part of the presentation here.
Thank you very much, Paul. So what I will do is I just want to share back my screen here. Yeah, and then that's the end of our presentation. I want to give it back to Daryl at this point in time. Daryl, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. There's a whole host of questions, but I see we're already a minute over our time, so we'll just go through a couple, and then the rest of the questions we will make sure we get back to everyone and answer. So I think let's just start with first one. Please elaborate on the security perspective, as this is a cloud-based solution. So maybe just touch a little bit on security.
Certainly. If possibly the person posing the question could elaborate on the security here. Okay, so let me just take a guess on this. Okay, we're using a lot of different you know, standard security technologies to protect data up in the cloud. Of course, you know, a lot of this is managed by let's say the corporate IT function to ensure the integrity and protection of data. Now, I think really what is most important probably from our perspective on the security is making sure that the data move from one location to another location, and you know, we do have encryption that is involved here. I'm sorry, the acronym for the particular encryption that we're using just evades me just at the moment, but I'd be more than happy to communicate with the person with the question to elaborate on that if required.
Okay, hopefully that answers. Another one here, is the database duplicated on the local device and updated in the background, or in what way is buffering to the cloud handled?
Okay,
Who wants to take that?
Yeah, I think that one might be mine as well. I'm not really, I'm sorry, could you read the question again?
Basically asking, in what way is the buffering to the cloud handled?
The buffering to the cloud. I guess that is with respect to the stranded data situation where you don't have an MES and you're using the Aspen Connect technology to go directly from, say, an OPC server up to an MES in the cloud. Okay, so if there is a loss of communication, certainly the Cloud Connect, it has a buffering technology. It realizes where it last left off in terms of transmission. It will buffer. It has a tremendous buffering capacity here, and then once it returns to service, it will simultaneously start to stream and unwind that buffer at the same time. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think let's try sneak in one or two more. I think the next one we'll have a look at is the public view based on the domain definition of the different user groups, or is there one public view for all users?
Yeah, so the public files for the Process Explorer is basically making it available for the public that is obviously connected to that domain and log on to the site. So you would typically use the public to be able to make all the tags and trends available that for the public, but the private is essentially stored per user by the user itself, so only the user can see it.
Okay, thanks. I think let's do one more quickly, and then I think we'll start wrapping up. Yeah, a little bit of a long question. How do you interact with metadata to create the underlying data lake? Example, a steel alloy, product info, customer spec or limit, etc. Is it stored as tags, or do you read it from external SQL database, or do you have a specific relational database as part of the environment that needs to be populated that caters for this information?
Wow. Okay, so you know, we have a lot of different options here in how this is done. I think the key term here is, how do you handle the contextualization? And that brings in something that we refer to as the manufacturing master data model. Probably there's different ways to contextualize, but okay, so when we're putting data into a data lake, we want to just simply rely on that data lake technology wholly, in whole, so to speak. So we you know, we'll leverage that. We'll just simply put the data in the data lake with whatever contextualization is available at the time. But this is actually a pretty large question here, and I know it sounds like I'm chickening out on this, but you know, there's I could do an hour-long presentation on how that's happening.
Okay. How are we for time? Should we call it there? I think others are going to be.
Yeah, I think Daryl, maybe at this stage we will get back to the answers that we didn't get to. The MMDM, I didn't go into that as part of this presentation, but we are planning to go into that in some of the additional webinars. But the KPI view that I showed, or the KPI hierarchy view that I showed with the dial gauges, is typically the database or the area where we then configured and gave context to what's the data that we want to look at the data model level. But we will go into some detail. But certainly we will get back to all the unanswered questions. And thank you, Paul. Thank you for taking part in this.
Can you give us the last slide, please? Last slide. Yeah, so yeah, also I want to basically thank Paul specifically for coming in. It's quite early there in America right now, so he came in quite early. So thank you very much for spending the time with us. And I also want to basically thank Henny and Glenn for the preparation that they've done. Really on the slide, I think there's a key message here is that all these events are basically recorded. So you can refer back to this specific event. And, you know, we got your questions here, so you'll get an email tomorrow as well. If you have more questions, let us know. You know, we would like to basically engage with you and have an individual session with you and have a detailed discussion on some of these questions. We have been answering a lot of the questions on the fly, also privately to some of these people, or some of you that's answered the questions. But yeah, you can see also we are 3 into a nine event series. So next week we go very much focused on APC DMC3 again, and all the special latest, greatest features there and what's coming. And we will also have some AspenTech presenters join us there. Following week, we're going into multivariate analysis, and you can see we're basically going every week. We're going either advanced process control, MES, or APC. Training is carrying on, so we are doing virtual training, and also e-learning with clients continuously. We finished one last week, and there's one scheduled again for later this month. Yeah, and I think that the biggest one is that if you want a AspenTech or a BluESP business consultant to basically speak to you about some of these questions, because specifically that last question, it really needs a discussion and a MS Teams calls, so we can arrange that. Just make sure that you reply on the emails that you get from us, or that you text here, that we get back to you, and we will arrange one of our consultants or one of the AspenTech consultants to work with us and come back to you very, very soon. Thank you very much for the time, for the hour and 10 minutes that you dedicated with us here. We really appreciate your commitment. We had a great audience, quite a large audience. So thank you for your interest and your commitment. And until we see you next week, Wednesday, same time.